We live in a twilight world. So here we are on the beach. Yeah, this is filmed on the 20th of November 2025. So that was yesterday, but I'm doing the audio overlay today. So forgive me if I accidentally say today when I meant yesterday and so on. But yeah, man, as you can see, very sunny, a nice pleasant day. The thermometer I was using there said 15 degrees Celsius. I don't know what it is for the Americans who use Fahrenheit, but it's pretty hot for November, yeah? Unlike what the media is trying to portray at the moment, and as you can see on the front of that newspaper, the idea that we're having Arctic weather, it's just not true. Maybe up north in Scotland, sure. Maybe the north of England, which is just below Scotland, sure, maybe. But to imply that the whole UK is, currently getting hit with Arctic weather is not true. Yeah? They do this a lot, don't they? I've been tracking this for many, many years now. The weather they project is not the same as the weather that is actually happening in real life. But that doesn't really matter, does it? Because the vast majority of people, what can I say? They use the internet and the TV as the source, as the datum point of their reality. So look, we're zooming in here. There's my thermometer. But, to the right of it, you can clearly see it says thunder snow, warning as Arctic blast chill the UK. And they've got a fucking ridiculous picture of a reindeer standing in snow. Yeah, this imagery they're putting into the theatre of the minds of the masses. Now, basically, I don't want to make this video too long. I want to cut straight to it. But I'm pretty sure right now, after, like I said, tracking this many, many years, that via illusion warfare, they're using the collective consciousness to control and manipulate weather. What I mean is, if they get the vast majority of people to believe it is cold, then ultimately that is what will manifest. And even if that's not the case, it doesn't really matter, because the vast majority of people will believe it's cold anyway. And you can see that when you're out and about, right? So I'm here on the beach. I got my top off. I'm sunbathing. I'm wearing my shorts. Yet everyone else is dressed like they are about to do an expedition to the North Pole with big furry Arctic jackets and big mittens on and really thick trousers and all this kind of costume wearing. Now, I don't waste my time, but I'm pretty sure if you point out to one of these people, like, look, it's clearly sunny. It's a clear blue sky. It's sunny. It's hot. Here's a thermometer saying 15 degrees. It doesn't matter. The TV has told them it is cold weather, and that's all that matters. The TV is the datum point, is the source of their reality. It puts ideas and imagery into the theatre of their mind, which then they live action role play in real life, thus theatrically bringing it into reality. So like I said, it doesn't really matter. We can look at it either way. Once this moment now, the present, has passed, it becomes history. It becomes memory. So people will remember it as a cold day, even though it was clearly not a cold day. It was a sunny, hot day for November. But ultimately, projecting forwards, you're getting the masses to picture in their mind's eye, picture in the theatre of their mind, the weather that they are projecting via the mainstream media, the internet, the TV. And before anyone becomes a smart ass and says, I don't own a TV, How are you watching this? You're watching this on some form of TV, yeah? The iPhone is a TV. The iPad is a TV. The laptop is a TV. Your smartphone is a TV. Your smartwatch is a TV. Anything that's a black mirror and that's telling you a vision is a TV, my friends. So, there's a lot of people out there that have always got these kind of stories about how they threw their TV out the window or they took a sledgehammer to their TV, yet they spend all day online on the internet. I'm like, my friend, this is a way more potent version of television than the old-fashioned thing that was in the corner of your living room that you used to watch when you get home from work, yeah? Anyway, I digress. This isn't about TV, this is about weather. Although, TV is a big part of that, right? So here's the screenshot I took of Google that morning, yesterday morning on the 20th. And they were saying it was 4 degrees. And it was going to be 4 degrees with 20% chance of snow, which didn't happen in the end. But yeah, again, this is what I mean about the illusion, the false perception of reality. They get the people to believe it's 4 degrees when actually it's 15 degrees. So who's right then? The person like me who's out there with a thermometer saying it's 15 degrees, or the majority of the people that believe it's 4 degrees and then dress like it's 4 degrees and then forever in their memories believe it was 4 degrees? You get what I'm saying? Because ultimately what I'm talking about with weather, you can then transfer it onto everything else. The war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, the economy, politics, the scamdemic and believing in a virus and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's all transferable, isn't it? Yeah? This reality is built on people believing in blank. And if they believe in the blank becomes manifest, doesn't it? Because people, like I said, are live action role-playing the theatricality of what they believe in. And the theatre in their mind becomes the theatre out in the street. Like I said, I've been tracking this for years and pointing this out for years. The best place to probably see an archive of this for my work is Instagram. But just to be clear, if you don't have Instagram, do not sign up to Instagram. I don't use it anymore. It's an awful place. People said to me it's nicer than Twitter and it's not that bad. It's actually, I'd say, just as sick as Twitter, but sick in a different way. In the narcissism is off the fucking charts over on Instagram. I started with Instagram the day I pretty much stopped on Twitter. Because, I got told I had a lot of supporters over on Instagram that were never going to go over to Twitter. So I've given 2 years to Instagram now, and I didn't really focus much on the war side of reality being an illusion, but I did kind of focus more on weather. So, for example, I would go to the beach and I'd, highlight the actual weather using my little digital thermometer, and I'd point out that it was a very nice day and it was very sunny, because you got to remember, most people outside of England, they have this idea, once again, it exists in the theatre of their mind that every day in England it's raining. That every day it's raining. And that's obviously not true. I think that mostly comes from Hollywood films that are aimed at Americans. Because there's a lot of stuff that exists in Hollywood films about England that I've never actually seen ever in real life. Like the sort of stereotypical English man and woman that they portray, like via people like Hugh Grant and all this kind of stuff. They don't fucking exist. And of course, like I said, the idea that it's always raining. Not true. But I've also highlighted across Europe as well, like when I went to Greece during the wildfires and stuff. Just overall, like both spectrums, when they claim it's colder than it is or when they claim it's hotter than it is. If you remember Greece, they're pretty much making out that it was so hot that Greece was basically bursting into flames. They were claiming 46. I went everywhere with my thermometer and proved it was about, at the best of times, midday 36. But anyway, yeah, let's wrap this up. The point I'm trying to make here is this is one of many ways you can test reality. You can test for yourself. And like I said, there are many, many ways to do this. There are many exercises you can do. But you can test the reality and that we live in an illusion. And that illusion, unfortunately, exists because most people believe in the illusion and therefore participate within the illusion. The prime one being, the one I'm talking about here, this is not the prime one. I'd say a more prime one would be like the war in Ukraine or the scamdemic. But this one is a kind of a little one that's been existing since the age of time. But the fact that the vast majority of people completely ignore the actual weather and actually base what they're experiencing on the weather that's being told to them via the TV, the radio, the newspaper, the internet. And it's one of them. Either I'm a deluded person that's living in a false reality, or the vast majority of people are. But the thing is, I'm providing like photographic evidence here. I've got a newspaper, a thermometer, and I'm clearly filming the sun in the sky. I mean, I don't really know what else proof I can give people, but once again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just something for you to consider. And maybe you should go and test it for yourself, because weather is a daily occurrence. If it's hot, or hot for November, why is people walking around as if it's Arctic weather when it's not Arctic weather? You get what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm not always very good at explaining this stuff. But ultimately, look, illusion warfare is the same as quantum mechanics. Except what I'm trying to explain is that the hidden hand that's controlling reality is getting the collective consciousness to believe in the reality they want to manifest. You know, the experts, the people that study quantum mechanics they struggle to explain it. So I'm not even going to waste my time. But if we think of like law of attraction or positive thinking or mind causation or what is sometimes called new thought, which comes under like, I guess, kind of new agey thinking, there's some truth to that, right? But the thing is with illusion warfare is you're getting the majority of people to believe in something. So whereas like an individual would use like the law of attraction to try and attract that version of reality into their life, the hidden hand that controls humanity is using theatricality and deception through the internet, the TV, the military-industrial complex, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. They're using this to get the collective consciousness to hyper-focus on the reality they want, thus selecting it from that potential of the multiverse. Make sense? Probably not. It's probably upon you to go and study this kind of stuff, because it's not something I can really explain in a 10-minute video. But yes, I am saying they are using, what I am saying is this is a good example of how illusion is the ultimate driver of our reality. And you can see this when you step outside and it's clearly a sunny day, yet everyone out there under illusion believes it's Arctic weather and therefore behaves accordingly. While I'm here, I'll just do another little quick related topic that might help this argument, might not. I don't know. There's no real right or wrong, but during the scamdemic, we had amazing weather. over here in the UK. I don't know about where you are, but here in the UK, we had amazing weather. Here's a funny meme that was going around. UK in the summer, raining. UK in the spring, raining. UK in the winter, raining. UK during a lockdown. We've got palm trees, blue skies, golden sands, clear blue sea. Yeah, paradise. Summer basically started in April, and it was an amazing summer. Now, why is that? Right, firstly, just before we talk about that, once again, this idea that it rains all the time in England, that exists in people's heads, and I've debunked this. I've debunked this well and truly now over the past 3 years. Anyway, why was the weather so good during the lockdowns? Well, we can only speculate, right? But the truther brigade would say that they weren't chemtrailing. Yeah, that could be true. I don't know. The normies would say, well, just because there was no airplanes in the air whatsoever, and the pollution that they produce, that wasn't messing with the weather. And also there wasn't as many cars on the road, so this wasn't messing with the weather. Yeah, again, that could be true. But what if, because every bit of apparatus possible, available, was used to convince people or make people believe in the illusion of a deadly virus, that there was no energy going into the weather department, who is usually in charge of making people believe in the weather and therefore manifesting it. Because everything, all hands on deck, were being hyper-focused on convincing the world of a deadly virus, which we know was an illusion. No one was really putting much energy and attention into projecting the weather they want into the minds of the masses. Do you know what I'm saying? And therefore, where they weren't putting any time or energy into weather manipulation via getting people to believe in it, therefore we had more natural weather, unaffected weather that wasn't being manipulated via deceiving the collective consciousness. Just a thought, who knows? All I know is I know nothing, but I do know that the weather that exists is very different from the weather that other people experience. So who's under the illusion? Maybe I'm the one that's under the illusion here. Maybe I'm the crazy person and I'm seeing a false reality. I don't know. But like I said, this is one of many ways you can test out to see that reality is not quite what it seems, especially with how you're experiencing it, and how others are experiencing it. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.